the last time that we talked until now, for some reason, what I heard was from this morning until now, I moved. And I was like, Shelly, why'd you pick this day to record then? Like, I don't feel bad for you. That was stupid. Why'd you do that? But now I understand. See, now I understand. And I don't, in fact, think that you are stupid.
Oh, thank you. So now we're just left with sympathy and pity. Great, thank you.
Now I'm just feeling silly for not understanding the actual words you were saying. And somehow hearing them and creating a different story in my mind.
She had a whole different story.
I started out with this conversation, right? And this is not meant to like, I see your trauma, let me raise you one. This is just like, you're having a bad day, I'm having a week.
A bad week.
If it's bad or good, but like, it's been a week.
See,
oh my God.
Somehow, I don't need any more explanation than that. It's been a week. Tell somebody everything you need to know. Shelly, I'm sorry that you're having a week. I'm hoping that this will bring some much needed levity into your week.
Yes.
And that you can hang up from this in 1 hour and be like, you know what? It's still really exhausting to move. But, let's just like break even, okay?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
At least we're not like expecting some, miraculous results here. Like, and then after I talked to Meg and Kylie, everything got magically unpacked and everything fit. And it looks great. And I'm so happy with the stuff that I have. Because
as we end the call, your butterflies will just appear on the wall behind you.
Yes, just like float in. Yeah.
I'm seeing the little birds like in Snow White, like flying in through the window and just unpacking all your furniture, putting your clothes away in the closet. That's what I'm seeing for you. And I'm very much enjoying it.
That's fantastic.
And
I hope that for you, after, our 1 hour conversation, that it goes back to being not back to being like whatever day you're having, but like maybe before that, like a better day.
Oh, yes. Well, I think a nap is in order then. We're going to do that. And I very much enjoy that idea. It is 10 a.m. here and I already need a nap. This is...
That's all right. So
we're good.
I read. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go. Yours is far more on point and on.
I'm not sure it's on point. I'm not sure what the point is exactly. I'm just talking. But I was gonna say that to Meg's comment about the nap, I read something that said if you think that let's see, how does it go? It's something like if you think that if you're mad at everybody, you need to eat something. If you think everybody's mad at you, you need to take a nap.
Oh my God. Shelly, that's it. Goodbye, everybody. That's all you needed for today.
We're all set here, guys. Thank you. Words to live by. That's all we need. Appreciate you all.
Make sure you Venmo or Cash App Shelly for her wisdom. Thank you very much. All right.
We're doing this on donation day. Okay, thanks, guys. Oh my God. That was hysterical.
Oh my God. Shelly, you just changed my life.
Shelly.
Also, Kylie, are you eating French fries or
really
Cheetos
well.
or what?
Thank you. They're veggie straws.
I can't tell in the thing. I was like so excited about the fact that they could be French fries, but then I was like, they're really crunchy for French fries.
They're super crunchy, yeah.
I really wish that they were French fries, guys. They might be my favorite fucking food. I'm not kidding. I just said that to my sister yesterday.
Yeah. Oh man.
I'm telling you.
That's a good one.
I'm at my parents' house right now, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't eaten in hours. I'm starving. There's not like a sensible combination of foods that exist in this house. It's like they have like a banana for lunch, and they're like, no, but it's great. And I'm like,
oh boy.
No, I'm not. That's too deep. We're not doing it today. But so now I'm eating veggie straws.
Oh, you can just hear the deflation and disappointment in that sentence.
Oh my God. Don't even make me start pulling out my weird combinations of food that was on my plate yesterday. Don't even make me do it because you all...
I'm doing it. I'm going to make you tell us.
Okay. We had leftover egg salad. We had a leftover salad, a turkey sausage, like one link of turkey sausage. We had leftover brown rice, leftover like sauteed onions and peppered, a dollop of Greek yogurt, and a little drizzle of mango chutney.
How did that taste altogether?
Actually, it was great. I have very weird taste buds, though. Really weird.
Did you eat it all separately? Please tell me. Yes.
I had the yogurt and the mango chutney on, and the rice and the peppers and onions. That was like together, and then the other stuff I ate separately.
I'm sorry. Did you say that you had mango chutney, yogurt, rice,
Yes.
peppers, and onions all together?
I sure did. And yep. I did.
So I just want to be clear. The thought of separating out the onions, peppers, and rice from the mango chutney and the yogurt never, like, that didn't.
No.
That wasn't an option?
No,
Okay.
not exactly.
That's
nope.
okay.
You want to know why? My friend Kayla was visiting last week, as you know, and she made us this really good recipe from her boss, I think. It's an Indian recipe. It's called kati rolls, I think is what it's called. So that was half of the kati rolls that I made. But I ran out of most of it, so I was trying to eat the rest of it, and that's how it
That's all right. Now I'm seeing.
So,
all right.
But the rest of it was totally random, like leftover stuff. So anyway, I hope that makes you feel better about the cacophony of non-existing foods that are in your house right now.
How about that word, Meg? Yes.
I was
you
just
could say
about to
anything
say.
after that word, and I would be
Listen,
like, yeah, what?
I told you I'm all business today, ladies. I brought the glasses out. We are business focused. Whipping out
Also,
the vocabulary.
I've never heard it pronounced that way. Maybe
What?
because I've only really seen it like written out. But
Shelly, you don't know this about our show, but I have a history of mispronouncing normal words. So it's very possible that is not the right way to say it, or even
So don't
the right way
get
to
too
use
attached
it.
to that pronunciation. It's most likely possible and likely that it's something different, but we all knew what she meant, and that is the only point.
oh, definitely.
It might not have even
communication,
been
right? Just to communicate, just to like translate, let yourself be.
That's
might
all
not
of,
even
like,
be the right
your
use of
messages
the
now.
word, but you got it.
Yeah, I think it's
Anyway.
like
we
sounds,
understood
like
the energy
delicious
that it was
sounds.
coming in.
Yes. Right. Anyway, Shelly, what are you drinking over there? You drink anything fun?
Oh, yeah. So I have, now that I've moved and I have a much better idea of how much stuff I actually have, including like how many duplicates
That's
of
always
things that I
fun.
actually have. Super fun. Especially when you have to pack them on. You're like, why did I buy 3 of this thing when I clearly had 1? But it's because it keeps going on sale and it just happens.
I feel that.
Anyway, so tea. I have a box of tea. Not like a nice little box of tea like people think of when they go to someone's house. Oh, let me take out my little tea box. I have a box of tea.
Like a moving box of tea?
Like a small moving box of tea. Like a very large grocery bag sized box of tea. Anyway.
You've got a box of boxes of tea.
I do.
Whoa.
And I was thinking like, oh, most of these will probably be just like onesie, twosie packets or like a tiny bit of loose leaf tea in a container that I can probably just combine, it's going to be fine, into my one little box of tea, like normal people have. So I looked at them and I
How
opened
wrong
every
were
single
you?
box. Very, very wrong. So anyway, I'm drinking one of the many, many teas that I have. This one happens to be a Earl Grey in a bag.
This is amazing.
But it's great. It's great. I love tea. I'm not a coffee person, so tea is kind of what I'm drinking most of the days.
Nice.
Especially in the morning. It really helps me. Found out that I have ADD, which
Welcome to the club.
I was gonna say it's probably not super surprising. You've talked to me twice now, but
you know what, Shelly?
so
we love and appreciate you as you
Yeah.
are. This is a come as you are type
Thank
of show.
you.
So
Thank you.
you know what?
Yeah.
Come,
We see
come
you.
at us with your moving box of tea, okay?
exactly. But what I was gonna say is I use tea to help me manage my ADD, and it is very helpful.
Oh.
So it went from something that I just enjoy drinking and sometimes felt slightly guilty about it because, everybody in like the caffeine thing and stuff, even though it's like way less than the 400 milligrams or whatever. I don't know if you get numbers for the show. You might have to edit that out. But sorry. Anyway,
we're keeping it now, especially for that.
Yeah. This is what Google's for. People, if you want to know how many milligrams, that's what Google's for.
Generally accepted as the safe limit for most people. People saving you a shortcut for Googling. Anyway, so I will sometimes feel slightly bad about that. But now I'm like, great. Yeah, this is like medicinal. So
yeah.
Well,
obviously.
it is though. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
It has been revolutionary in the way that I'm able to manage. So
you guys, we're planning on trying to do a whole separate ADD ADHD sort of segment, but there's a little teaser for you. There you go.
Yeah.
Meg, what have you got going on over there?
I am still very much enjoying this smoothie. The same one as like the previous maybe couple that we've recorded, but it is protein powder, spinach. Oh, you know what? I threw basil in here, holy basil, because I'm experimenting with adaptogens. So I'm trying to like figure out how I can get some more adrenal nourishment in my smoothie here. So we threw that in. Unsweetened acai puree, acai, I don't know. Another word.
Too.
Yeah, okay,
add it to the
cool.
list.
So that's what it is then. We're going with that. Ginger, ovacetol is in there, / avacetol. We're not sure. This is my smoothie of words I don't know how to properly pronounce. So anyway, that's that. And then also, being the tea fan that I am, I have a little combination here of my ginseng, which you know I love, and dandelion I threw in there for some fun.
Yes.
I love dandelion tea. Dandelion tea.
Yeah, so that's what I'm drinking. Yes. What are you drinking, Kylie?
I have nothing fun to report at all because I am not where I need to be for my fun drinks. I mean, remember my lunch? Do we need to talk about this? Lunch and veggie straws, right? No, but what I did find out in my parents' fridge, which is just months ago, the last time I was home in May, I brought them one of my most favorite Ollipops, the orange cream ones, which are not out all of the time. And I brought them 2. And there's still one in there, which, again, I don't comprehend. How has it been there for months?
It was waiting for you.
Unopened, unacknowledged. Well, now, this would be the perfect time to have it. But what did I do? I told Brian I'd wait for him so that we could split it and drink it together. What kind of person am I?
No.
So generous of you.
Rude. So generous.
Nope.
You know, maybe I don't. It's just not good.
I'm against it.
I know.
No.
I'm not happy with my choice, but here we are drinking lukewarm tap water from my dirty water bottle. That's what I'm drinking. Thank you.
Oh, God. Oh, I'm not for that choice for you. I'm all for Brian's biggest fan, but nope, not today. I think you deserve that Olipop.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Collectively, I appreciate you.
Then he can listen to this later and be like, wow, what a sacrifice.
Boy,
although I'm sure that he will hear about it prior to.
Yeah. Or you could be like, listen, Meg told me I could drink the Olipop.
Meg told me
fault.
I could do it. And it's her birthday soon, and that just basically means that she gets to say whatever she wants.
Thank you. It's next week, and
I wasn't sure how I was gonna slip that in, but boy, was that good.
Well, if you didn't, I would have, because it's almost Leo season. I think technically tomorrow, or is it today? Oh my God,
this is cuspy. Today's my sister's birthday, my youngest sister's birthday, and she's cuspy. Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Yeah. Yes! Happy Leo season to all my fellow Leos out there. Woo! Oh,
Meg has never felt more seen or heard.
Oh my God, I just got this like wash of like dopamine. It's just so good.
See,
anyway,
that's all you needed. You thought you needed a walk this morning. Wrong. You were wrong.
No, I thought I needed a walk and a nap and all. No, I just needed to be reminded that today is the first day of Leo season. Yes. I am at home.
And we've come full circle.
I am at home. All right. So speaking of having nothing to do with Shelly, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
God. Okay.
Can you tell us who you are and the work that you do? And then Kylie and I can dive into start picking your brain.
Sure. So I'm Shelly. I'm a nutrition mindset coach. I'm trained as a dietitian. I think with the two of you, right?
Yes.
And, Yep. So dietitian as well. I have a certification in intuitive eating. And what I do is I help busy women who have a lot going on to really feel like they can take care of themselves and get all their goals done at the same time. Because, as you know, a lot of us feel like it's one or the other. So being able to help them do both and to achieve the feeling that they can be healthy and enjoy their food. Because again, a lot of people feel like it's one or the other. So, finding that balance where healthy can be fun and fun can be healthy, and we don't have these good bad foods lists and all of that, so that we can bring that joy back, feel more peace in and with our food and in and with our bodies, and in and with ourselves at any size. Because I think that it's really sad when people are waiting until some point in the future, whether it's because of the size or the shape of their body or because of something else that feels unfinished to them. When we're waiting for that thing to happen before we do something else that we would love to do, right? So something that is, it's one thing to know about the timing of what we want to do, right? Because we can't do everything all at once. So there is a timing aspect here, but not talking about that as much as like holding ourselves back from our own lives, like that. And I don't know if we'll talk about this later, but like that's one of the pieces that got me really interested in this in the first place, was that idea that we often hold ourselves back from our own lives. And I don't like that feeling. I don't want that for other people. I want to help people, women especially, to feel like they can actually participate in their lives right now.
Wow.
You don't have to wait until, you've achieved a certain dress size or you've eaten perfectly, but you can start right now.
I love that. And before we continue, Shelly, can you either move a little closer to your mic or speak a little bit louder, or turn your mic up on your computer? Because I have you all the way up and you're still a little bit low.
Sure. I will also take one of these out because I think as I feel like I'm shouting when my ears are plugged, but I probably am whispering. So.
Yeah, you're low.
All right. I don't know how to adjust the settings on my microphone.
Oh, okay. On your do you know how to do it on your computer, like outside of the Riverside app?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, try that. Because I'm done trying to mess around with Riverside. And we'll have Erica edit this out so we can just keep going. Sorry to interrupt. This makes the editing process a lot easier if we just interject.
Yeah, and I tried to put it so that it would be, because like I'm using different headphones than the last time, so this one doesn't have a mic on here. So I'm trying to use the one from my camera, which is the way that it worked better last time. But
you sound good. It's just low. That's all. I just want to make sure people can hear you.
Let me try one more thing.
Okay.
Let me see if I have them here. It might be cutting out a little bit because or muting my sound a little bit because it's trying to filter out the fan noise from the computer.
Oh.
So let me.
Whoa! I didn't even think of that.
Adjust a little bit, and I hear my fan going pretty hard right now. So I'm gonna put some really super super fancy stuff here. I'm gonna put some bottle caps underneath my the back of my laptop.
Oh.
So, vent it
Whoa!
1 second, I'll be back.
How fancy! Oh my gosh, I gotta pick her brain about some tech stuff because
that was a brilliant idea.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there's echoing now, so we'll see what this sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it's echoing probably because I disconnected my speaker, so now you're hearing yourself. But
yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to be able to hear you in case you were talking to me because I step away. That's one. No, that's the camera. At least that's stable, so it's not going anywhere.
Perfect.
All right, I'll just try to remember until it calms down. It's we can see. Is this okay?
Mm-hmm. It's okay.
Actually, with you talking louder.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, hopefully this is okay.
Yeah, with you sitting like that and talking at that tone or even a little louder, it's going to be great. I think so.
Okay.
Good. Okay, cool.
Just shout like this, like every time.
That's listen, that's fine.
That's just fine.
Go for it. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I think Kylie, did you have a question for Shelly?
Yes. So I wanted you to share with us, please. I think a lot of people have at least heard of intuitive eating. And if they don't know what it is, they might have some sort of idea. And my concern is what their idea is versus what it actually is. And I think there's also a lot going around about health at every size, or HAES as it'll often be abbreviated. So if you could just share with us briefly, give us a little recap about what both of those things are and how they are connected, and how they're connected to the work that you do, why that foundation is so important for you to be kind of springing from when you're talking about the mindset piece. Because I think most people are like, nutrition, a dietitian, may not know exactly what they're going to be doing, but when we add in a nutrition mindset coach component, I think that's something a little bit more nuanced. So just explain what those things are and how it works into what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you're right about a lot of people have heard of both of those, health at every size and intuitive eating, and also there's so many different ideas about what that means, right? And as I think it's always helpful to find them, or at least ask for what the other person's definition is. So the one that I use, or the way that I describe it to a lot of people, is intuitive eating is the idea that we're going to shift from using the external rules and move the attention and our preference to the internal cues, like our preferences, like how hungry we are, not in the diety sense, but in the like, what would I prefer? How does my body feel right now? How would I like it to feel in the future? And then combining it with the nutrition science, but in a neutral perspective. So not necessarily like, well, we know that a carrot is helpful for our eyesight, so I must need to eat carrots every day. No, that information is not, it's not a rule that says you have to eat carrots or you have to enjoy carrots, because what if you can't eat them? Or what if you're like some of the people who are allergic to carrots? Okay, that doesn't make any sense, right? Just because they're quote unquote healthy for you doesn't mean that you have to eat carrots now. Like, I had an experience like that. I knew that almonds were healthy and good for us. We are supposed to eat a certain number of almonds every day, blah, blah, blah. The research had come out around that time. This was many years ago. And that was a population-based study. Populations do not account for individuals, which is part of the problem when we have nutrition recommendations, right? They're population-based. You still have to take that, and this is where the dietitian comes in. We can take those recommendations and help filter them and apply and help the person sort through all the information that they're getting and say, what is actually relevant to me? What is actually relevant to my goals? Why would I do this? Like, explain the background and how did this come about? And, there's so many different pieces. And so when we're talking about intuitive eating, we talk about, okay, paying attention to our body's cues, paying attention to my preferences. So for example, almonds, I did not like the taste of almonds, still don't, but my brain was saying, well, they're good for me. I should eat almonds. I should eat X number of almonds. I forget the exact amount, but it was based on that one study. And there's one problem, right? It was based on a study, study that was not, I was not a part of. They didn't study me. They studied a different group of people. And it turns out I was actually allergic to almonds. So that didn't go very well. But I kept eating them because I was supposed to. Anyway, so it's just one of my many examples of how ignoring the internal cues, our own personal internal cues, for the external rules or for the external recommendations, that would be the normal, right? Like, that's kind of the diet culture that we live in. Override yourself, go with what everybody outside of you says. You know, you need to try to be as healthy as possible, or you are shamed for it. And instead, we're shifting that to saying, okay, if health is your goal, because it doesn't have to be, but if health is your goal, there are certain things that we can do. None of those include a lot of shame and guilt around your food. It also doesn't include forcing yourself to eat. Actually, intuitive eaters in many studies have better health outcomes and better health indicators and lower risk factors than the non-intuitive eaters, the people who are basically doing the same dieting thing. And so when you look at that, like, intuitive eating is not ignoring every nutrition science and ignoring like, oh, well, some people are like, well, you can't tell me to eat chocolate every day. That's really what you're saying, is just I can eat as much chocolate and ice cream as I want. And I said, well, yeah, you can. But just think about that. Like, if you really allowed yourself to eat as much chocolate as you wanted, because you have that permission, food is a basic human right. It's not something that's off limits to us. If you give yourself that permission to unconditionally eat ice cream, what would you feel? Like, how would your body feel? And they're like, well, you know, I'd probably have a headache and I would feel sick to my stomach. I'm like, okay. And how would it taste after a while? Like, what would you, well, no, I love ice cream. I'm like, well, have you ever been in that situation before? And they're like, no. Because we never let ourselves get to that point, right? We never let ourselves, it's always this off limits food. It's always something that, you know, is this mystery magical thing that we've now elevated so much that it takes so much willpower, it takes so much effort to ignore it, where it could just be a food. And that's what intuitive eating is for me, is moving past all those rules, all the expectations of ourselves and of eating, and what it means to be a healthy eater, what it means to be an eater in general and a human being, and all these expectations, and to say, okay, we need food. That's a human need. We need food. And now how do we move forward with that, and with your preferences and with your cultural considerations, because even the definition of what is a food changes across cultures. So it's much more flexible for the person. It's much more flexible for the situation. And health at every size plays a big role in this, because it's not saying that everybody is healthy at the size they are, because not everybody is healthy, period. Right? Like, it doesn't matter our size or shape. Like, we're just not all healthy. And for some of us, you know, health as it's usually defined means that if you have any kind of chronic condition, you're not healthy anymore, technically. Right? So healthy is usually the absence of disease. So like, even to have an allergy, non-almond allergy, would mean that I am not healthy and I have other things going on. So like, you know, there are lots of things that could be considered like, hey, you know, even as dietitians, we may not be this pillar of health that everybody thinks we are, just because of the definitions that we're using. But health at every size takes that focus of trying to be healthy as like the number one goal, and equating that with a certain size or shape, and really focusing on what are the health behaviors that we can do that are associated, like in the research, they're associated with actual health, that we can change, and to accept the things that we cannot change. So our size and our shape, those are largely out of our control. The one exception to that for a lot of people is that the more that you try to lose weight, the bigger that you will get. For the majority of people, right? There's pretty consistent evidence on that in the long run. But for a lot of other people, like, there are things that we can do. If you're thinking of, you know, letting go of that goal to lose weight, there's lots of things that we can do to be healthy, regardless of whether our weight changes or not. So that's where I'd put the focus, is what are the modifiable risk factors, modifiable health risk factors. Wow. So that's a term from, you know, nutrition school. But basically, for listeners who didn't go to that school, didn't go to dietitian school, this means what are the things that we can change that are associated with our health and our risk factors for health, and weight isn't one of them.
Wow. Oh my God, there's so much to unpack there. Oh boy. But I I really love that you pointed out the difference, like, because I hear that too. I'm not an intuitive eating dietitian, but I hear that about intuitive eating from people who are either interested in or maybe skeptical or maybe none of the above. But the reaction is, oh, so I can just eat whatever I want. And you very clearly are like, no, ma'am, you are going to be changing who you're listening to. You're not listening to the outside. You are now listening to the inside. And that is a really cool clarification. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question following that.
Yeah, Kylie.
Sorry. Meg, I think that it's doing that weird overlapping thing again. So
I think so too.
Is there something we need to do?
I don't think so. What I would do is, if you notice that someone, like, that you're talking over each other, I would just either make the decision to stop and let the other person go, or I would just keep talking until one of you, because that way we can, with the tracks, I don't think it'll, well, I don't know. Now I'm thinking, no. I don't know what to do. I think we should just try to just pause, I guess, is what I would say. Yeah, just like wait for it to.
Okay.
And then that way, when Erica's editing it, she only has to edit out the pause. She's not actually having to edit out what we're saying. So just,
Okay.
Sorry about that. But I think it'll be okay.
That's good. I just wanted to address it before we kept going and kept doing that same thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So Shelly, all I was going to ask is, when you have people come to you, I imagine, and maybe this isn't everybody, but I imagine that there's a lot of resistance to this idea. There's a lot of unlearning involved. There's a lot of, well, how could I possibly listen to my internal cues when I don't even know what that means? I have no clue what you're talking about. What am I listening to? I just kind of want to dive right in, because I think that's most people, right? We are starting this from a very young age where, our parents lovingly tell us you can't leave the table until you clear your plate. Whether that child is hungry or full or somewhere in between, it doesn't really matter. It's clear the plate. And we are taught very soon to ignore those internal cues. And so, an adult 30, 40 years later, they're not going to know what the hell you're talking about. And I think this is where a lot of people start to feel like they have no idea what they need or what they like. So I'm going to have a starting point of listening to the outside and just follow that, because I don't know what else to try. So I think that's a lot of people. And so when you get these people in front of you, what is your starting point? What can somebody start thinking about right now in order to help transition from one side of this story to the other?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Because I often hear that too, like, oh, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know when I'm hungry or when I'm full, or I'm hungry all the time. So if I listen to my hunger, I would just be eating all day long. And then that touches on a lot of fears people have. And so we're unlearning, but we're also addressing a lot of the fears and the what ifs and just I think the confusion and unknowns around trying something different, right? Because like you said, if you don't know, then what do you have left? Then you go to a dietitian and you say, tell me what to eat. And we've all heard that, right? What should I eat? Oh, you're a dietitian. What do you think about this? Like, grade my food and then tell me something better. And it's not like that. So like you said, there's a transition period, and it's not like it just happens, right? Oh, well, we've transitioned once and we're done. Like, it's a process of unlearning, and it continues because we're just swimming in this water. This is how I often tell people. It's like we're swimming in this water, and so you don't even notice it until something pops up and you're like, whoa, where did that come from? I thought I was done with that thought. But it just like, there it is again, right? So it really depends on where the person is in their journey, and like you said, what is their story? Because sometimes people are going to be part of that clean plate club. Other times people are going to be in that, like, I'm hungry all the time place. Other people will be like, no, I'm never hungry, or I go between hungry and then full, or know exactly what to eat. I've been eating healthy my whole life, and that by itself is already a big thing. And so there's plenty of different things I might say. If I take one of the most common ones that I see with women, especially, I use this phrase like women have a lot going on. So a lot of times there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things in our lives. There's a lot of events. There's a lot of demands on us. We don't always, like you said, Kylie, we don't always even know what we need. But even more than that, sometimes we don't even know what we want. Like, we don't even know what we like. Wow. I asked the question before about, like, what's your favorite food? And people can tell me what they crave or what they are feeling uncontrolled around, but they can't really tell me what their favorite is. Like, they don't actually know.
Wow.
So if you don't have a favorite food, that could be a place to start, right? It's just exploring your preferences. Like, do I like this food that I'm eating? You don't even have to change anything. You could just go through your day and just start thinking about, like, do I actually like what I'm eating? Do I like this drink? Do I like the foods that, like we were talking about at the beginning? Like, do I like these foods? Is this the experience that I want? You know, what is my experience in this moment of this thing, of this food, of this drink, of the way that I'm eating? Like, maybe you're just really tired and you haven't never noticed it, but maybe you're really tired of always eating while you work or always eating while you check your email.
Oh my gosh.
You just love to get back to being able to eat and, like, just be.
I can imagine that is a great goal for most people, but can you clarify for us, because you had mentioned that a lot of people may not, when you ask them what they like to, or what their favorite food is, they tell you either what they're craving or something else. So can you verbalize the difference between what it means to actually like and enjoy a food versus craving? I feel like some may not even, if that's what they're answering you with, some people listening might not even know what the difference is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I think of cravings, I think of that thing that, like, feels almost like an impulsive kind of desire. Like, oh, I want this thing, right? Like, we just started talking about French fries, and I really want French fries. Okay, but let's be honest, like, I really want French fries most of the time because it is one of my favorite foods. So that, in that sense, it overlaps quite a bit. But I don't always want French fries, and I don't feel uncontrolled around French fries. I did at one point, but I don't anymore. So I think that there's differences in how we experience those things. The same food, right? The same French fries. We can crave those French fries. Like, we have this intense desire for them. We can enjoy the French fries, which may overlap with the craving once we get it, where we're really feeling satisfied around that food, right? We're satisfied either in the experience or with the taste or the texture, or something about that is very satisfying to us in that moment. And that's where I would say is more the enjoyment piece, right? The satisfaction. And then we could also say that we're feeling out of control. Like, maybe there is something we enjoy about it. Maybe we did crave it, but every time we decide to, a lot of times you hear people use the word indulge, or when I give in, then it's like, I just have to eat the whole thing. And there's a satisfaction, or there's an enjoyment, a pleasure, but not satisfaction, right?
Wow.
So pleasure is now in the moment, and satisfaction is broader than that. Satisfaction expands to, how did you feel after the experience, the exact experience of eating, the last bite passes your mouth. Are you still enjoying that? Did you still enjoy that? Was it still pleasurable? Was it still satisfying? Or was it just pleasurable in that moment? Then that's a different experience, right? And that's where I'd say, like, if the food is satisfying, it's probably more one of your favorite foods, or, you know, food that you really preferred in that moment. If it's just pleasurable, it could be one of the other two. Obviously, there's overlap. There's a lot of exceptions, right? But that's kind of the general way I'd explain that difference.
Wow.
Oh, that's so helpful.
So rich. Yeah. That's really, and Meg, if you don't mind if I keep going with this question.
No, please do.
I think you're starting to talk about cravings now. And I know a lot of people who, you know, both professionally and personally, who it feels very hopeless. I cannot eat sugar at all, or else I will not stop eating it. I can't eat any of the chips, or else I will not stop eating them. because I crave them. That uncontrolled feeling that you were talking about, Shelly. And so my more direct question here is, what the hell do we teach these people? What do we tell the person who is, any of us can relate to this at some point, but I do know that there are a lot of people who struggle with this on a more consistent daily basis than others. It's just, that's one of those things. And so what can we tell this person to either do, not do, think about, change, or alter how they're viewing something in order to help bring some sense of relief to what I know is often explained as a burden, a real burden?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, I think we've all had those moments where we do feel out of control around our food.
I'm thinking of the white cheddar popcorn right now for myself.
Oh my God, so was I! The smart food, the black bag.
The black bag. Don't come near me with that black bag. Oh my God.
Open them. Get the snack size bags or else the whole fucking thing is done. Meg, I almost said it and I thought, well, I'm not gonna call them out, but I mean, in terms of relating,
they need to be called out because they put crack in their popcorn. That is the problem.
For
Shelly, help us and the rest of us out there.
Yeah, so I think one thing to know, like, obviously you're joking in that sense, but I think the language that we use around it, like even in the language, right, that we're talking about it in, it's so, there's the addiction type of language around enjoyable foods. And it's like, okay, so enjoyable foods is not like enjoying a food. Let's start there. Enjoying a food is not a bad thing, right? And that's the first thing. Enjoying a food is not a bad thing. Okay.
So we're releasing the guilt.
We're releasing the guilt. Food is neutral. It's just food. It's not a good or bad food. It's just food. Mm-hmm. Popcorn is a whole grain, number one. So like, even if it wasn't though, even if you were just like ice cream or like straight up spoonfuls of sugar or something like that, like, okay, it's neutral, right? It's going to affect our bodies differently than something else. Of course, every food will do that. That's not unique. It's not saying like, wow, there's nothing good about this food and something good about that. No, it's just different. Sugar is carbohydrates. We need carbohydrates to survive.
Yes,
there's benefit in all foods, right? So like you can say that it is neutral. You can say that it's okay to eat. It's okay to enjoy your food. And I think starting there for some people, like there's so much resistance that comes up. And so if you're hearing me say this and you're just feeling like a ton of resistance, like, no, even if you like, there's a part of you that wants to, like, that would be the dream. Like for some people that could be true. Great. Start there. Hold that thought, because if you can start to change your belief around some of this and some of the eating, even for other people, like it may not be true for you yet, but maybe for other people, they could eat that. You've just started making a little bit of progress, right? Because for somebody out there, it could be true. Maybe for certain foods, they could be safe. And we just start growing it from there. If what I'm saying now is like, great, like, no, that makes sense. I'm totally on board. All food fits. Fantastic. All food fits. That means unconditionally, all food fits. Whether you ate a lot yesterday, ate a little bit yesterday, you can still eat today. And when we start thinking about like, this is a food that I would really like to have, are we restricting our food? That's the next step, is when you're looking for a restriction of any kind. Like maybe you're like, no, I eat so much. I hear this a lot when I start asking these questions, is people say, no, I eat too much. I enjoy my food too much. Then my question is always, who tells you what is too much? Right? Where are you getting that from?
Whoa.
Yeah, because that oftentimes is the external rule, or the bag itself, right? Because we label the bag and the bag says, well, only this amount is supposed to be allowed. And I say, no, that's the measured amount, because how else are we going to tell you what is in it if we can't, like, if we just said, oh, well, it has, X number of grams of something. In what amount? We don't know. We didn't put that on the label. So we have to put it on the label, because there has to be something there just to say that was the measured amount that we tested these things in. It doesn't necessarily mean this is your allowed amount that you can only eat up to, right? So we can let go of the guilt there too. And we can start saying, okay, we're not restricting the amounts. We're not restricting the food. We're not restricting the time of day. We're not restricting that I can't eat this, but you might be able to. We're not restricting that I can only eat it out on certain occasions when I've been good, or when I'm going to go work out or at a party, but not on, a weekday by myself in my house. No, it's allowed. Unconditional permission to eat means you are giving yourself the ability and the permission to eat anything at any time. You're seeking satisfaction. So at some point, there will be a point, and this takes some time to tune into, right? Because I've definitely, like I used to say too, that, there's no point at which it stops being tasty. But there's usually a point at which it stops being as good or as much of a draw, right? And sometimes it's just a matter of that popcorn, Cheetos, for example, I love Cheetos. For me, I have to take breaks when I eat Cheetos because at some point it stops being satisfying when I have enough stuff on my fingers that I'm like, I can't feel the Cheeto anymore. I need to wipe it off or lick it off or something, or switch to using chopsticks to get them out, just so that I can feel it again. There's something distinct in the experience of eating Cheetos that is no longer satisfying once I have enough buildup of the cheese on my fingers. Same with the popcorn,
love that.
There's just something about it. And so in that moment, I have that choice. And I still keep eating them afterwards, right? But there's that moment to adjust the experience so that it's more satisfying to me. And it's not based on, after so many Cheetos, I need to take a break and reassess if I am, really, really wanted the next Cheeto, or did I not? I'm into the next serving size now. No, it's just about, let my satisfaction drive this experience. And sometimes I guess wrong. And sometimes I'm like, well, that was too many Cheetos, as defined by now my stomach kind of hurts, or now I'm feeling super thirsty and I need to go get water and I don't have water with me. Things like that, right? Okay, but those internal cues are the ones that are defining how much is too much, not the external rules about somebody just giving me an arbitrary number of how many Cheetos I can have or how many popcorn pieces I can have, or saying this food is better than that other food, or labeling it okay, the cheddar popcorn that comes in the Christmas tubs versus in that bag that's labeled as the smart healthy choice. Because, a lot of people would say that the Christmas tubs are that's junk popcorn. And they feel really, really guilty about eating that one compared to the black bag, the white cheddar popcorn in the black bag, because that bag is marketed as the smart healthy choice. So it's the same idea, right? We're just putting a halo on one of them and not the other one, and saying that's an allowed food and that's not an allowed food. I'm not saying that they're exactly the same food. They have different ingredients. Okay, fine. But so does an apple versus a banana, and nobody's saying one is better than the other. I shouldn't say nobody. There's probably somebody out there saying all kinds of things. So I really should watch my extreme language. But it's really silly to be saying that we are only allowing ourselves to eat and take pleasure from certain foods and not others. Everybody would be if I could really enjoy salads, that would be the best. If I could like cake less, that would be the best. Why? Why is that the best? I want to have a life that's enjoyable. I want to enjoy my food. I don't want my food to define my life or myself, but I want to be able to enjoy and take pleasure in one of the most simple joys of life, right? Something that is so important around the world to different cultures, that can bring people together, that nourishes us. We don't have a lot of other things that is a need and this great pleasure and this great art form and all these different things. And it's such a rich experience to be missing out on just because we're saying that one thing is worse than the other, when even around the world that varies, right? So why did we arbitrarily pick this one? Why in 20 years would we pick something different? It doesn't make any sense, right? Let's just make it food again.
Wow. So
let's make food again.
So do you have certain practices or strategies that you use with clients to help them? We've talked a lot so far about resetting, rewiring the brain, almost rewiring the thought process around food, rewiring how we think about the experience of food. Do you have tools that you use to help clients do that? And I'm asking because, again, I'm not an intuitive eating dietitian, but some of the things I've heard are things like avoiding distracted eating really slow. So I'm just curious about what your tools are, if you have any that you use with clients that you think are the most helpful that you want to share with our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and even in that list, right? Like we always hear about, mindful eating, and everybody goes to the raisin example. With you experience the super slow raisin eating experience where you're like even listening to the raisin, about like experiencing it in all 5 of your senses, and like what does it
Wait, I've
what does
never
it
heard
sound
this
like
before.
You've never heard this? Oh, okay.
No, I don't think so.
Apparently sometime, I forget who it was exactly, but somebody created this mindful eating practice of eating a raisin, which is something a lot of us just like pop in our mouth and it's gone. And eating this raisin in a way that involves all 5 senses as a way to teach mindful eating. Mindful eating is not the same as intuitive eating, but that's often what people think about when they think about like intuitive eating, is like, oh yeah, slow down, right? Eat, chew everything like 100 times. Like that's a diet rule, having to eat, like forcing yourself to eat only without distractions. Another diet rule, right? If you choose to do that, that's fine. Diets don't own that behavior, but you don't have to, right? So if you really want to take that mindful meal, great. If you don't, because that's just not the reality, maybe you have a lot going on, like a lot of my clients do, you're very busy, or you just would prefer to read while you eat, or there's other things, like there's many reasons why you may not be able to like fully put your attention. Maybe it's not just that enjoyable, like veggie straws for lunch, and you really don't want to be paying attention to it. Great, that's okay, right? That is also a neutral experience. And then, okay, how are we going to make that the most satisfying that it can be given the certain situation, right? And so maybe you're going to eat them while you distract yourself with a conversation, or maybe you're going to eat them while you plan another meal that is going to be more satisfying, or when you check emails or something else. And for the clients who that is not satisfying for them, then I encourage a mindful bite. So sometime during that meal, the beginning, the middle, the end, wherever you feel like it, have a mindful bite, where the only thing you're doing in that bite is eating, experiencing that food. And then there's no obligation to continue it that way. There's no obligation to stop eating at that point, because a lot of people are like, well, once you really check in, then you have to stop eating. No, it's just information, right? My job is to help people make informed decisions. The more we gather information, the more informed our decision can be. So as you check in with yourself, that can be really helpful. So, sometimes it's just a matter of saying, how am I feeling right now? And if you don't know, then you can say, am I comfortable or uncomfortable? And that can give you some information, right? And then you can help figure out what to do next. So even in the process of eating, right? If you're not feeling very great about your food, but you have a lot of other options, you could even go, do I want something different? Right? Or you could say, okay, well, next time I want something different, but for right now, I'm going to decide not to waste this food. And so I'm going to eat it. I know it's not the most satisfying, but I'll still tune into my hunger and fullness instead. Right? So I do a lot with hunger and fullness, and I call it the hunger and fullness map. It's because I'm looking for landmarks, and I'm teaching people to look for landmarks. We're not looking for numbers on a scale, which is often what people refer to when they're talking about the hunger and fullness scale, where it's like a ruler. And so I still use numbers just to quantify something that isn't super quantifiable. But really you're looking for, what are some of the landmarks? Like if you were giving directions to somebody who didn't know the area, you wouldn't say like, well, then you turn left on 96th Street and then you turn right on 12th Street, and then you're in this small town where there are no signs. So how do you know? Right? So you would tell them, well, you turn left by the post office and then you turn right at the stop sign. And so you're looking for those landmarks, right? So it's the same way. We say, okay, based on research, these are other things. Based on client experience, other clients' experience, these are the things to look for. These are some of the subtle hunger cues and subtle fullness cues in the middle range, so that it's not this giant surprise when you're like starving, ravenous, and then you jump over to Thanksgiving level full, right? There's in-betweens, and you can figure out how to reestablish those in-betweens using that tool. And so that's one of my very helpful tools. Another one.
Wait, before you go on to that next tool, I think could you outline some of the, because like I think there's probably a lot of people listening. Just give some examples about like what some of those hunger fullness cues are.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's kind of confusing for some people. And obviously you don't have to go in depth. I'm sure it's a very deep, like individualized process and topic, but if there's any that come to mind that are in the research that you've seen or that you see the most commonly, that would be great.
Yeah. So one of the mild hunger signs that a lot of people overlook is just like a slowness in thinking. When you start kind of hitting that like a little bit slow, like things just aren't quite making sense, that's one of the early signs. Unless it goes on too long, and then that's like that kind of like lethargic, kind of like my brain is mud feeling. Like that's a much later sign, like where there is no concrete logical thought coming through this mud.
Mm-hmm.
Eat something, right?
I imagine hanger falls in that category too, like right there.
Hanger.
Yeah.
But before you get to hanger, you might even feel like the impatient in your head feeling.
Oh.
You know, like when somebody's just walking too slowly, and you're behind them, and you have someone be, and
Kylie literally did this
you're polite, but you kind of have the impatient feeling inside of you, like I need to go, or like you're driving, you feel the same way. It's the same kind of feeling. Like take that feeling and put it inside of you, and then address it to everything. Right? If you're feeling that kind of like impatient, where you still have self-control over it, it doesn't just pop out of your mouth. You're not, raging at somebody or yourself, but you're just kind of like a little on edge. That's an early hunger sign. On the other side, as you get less interested in food or you start slowing down in your eating, that can be an early full sign, approaching comfortable fullness, right? And so we talk about comfortable fullness because there's full and there's varying degrees of full. And we can be, like I said, Thanksgiving level full, right? That's kind of like the max out where you just feel like if I move, I'm going to pop, or things are going to come out to make space. That would be the extreme of fullness. Then there's other things that are like before that, right? And so we're hoping that as we get more familiar with these things, that you can start noticing them earlier and earlier, so you can stay around that comfortable sense of fullness where you're satisfied, you're ready to move on to the next thing. That's one of the phrases that came from a client that I was working with. And she said, after looking at this, like, I think that's one of the things that I've noticed is food just doesn't hold that same interest and excitement anymore. It's just kind of, it's there, like it still tastes good, but I'm kind of ready to move on to the next thing of my day. Like I've eaten, and now I'm kind of more excited about what's next, not the food.
Oh, very cool. Okay, thank you so much for clarifying. Yeah, that's so helpful. That I have a much more clear idea now. I was using the listeners as a front for I need help understanding what this means. So thank you, listeners, for being my guinea pigs. Anyway, go on with you were telling us about tools. So we were going through the list of tools. Yeah.
Another one I have is, I call it my custom menu. And basically it takes some of the overwhelm and the decision fatigue out of trying to plan a meal when you're really busy or when you're really tired or when it's probably time to eat, but maybe those hunger signals are offline right now for some reason. So you're going to have to choose a different way of doing things. So I encourage people like, well, then we're eating every so many hours. And so when you get to that point, like food isn't that interesting when you don't have your hunger signals. So what do? You eat something that is, tolerable in your stomach, that it's going to feel okay, but that is also tolerable in your taste buds. You're not trying to force yourself to eat something that tastes horrible. And like I said, because our hunger signals may be offline in that moment, maybe we're super stressed or sick or something like that, or maybe we're just so busy, we just haven't really thought about like what we might want to eat. Okay, let's just have some ideas. Or maybe we let ourselves get really, really hungry and now we need something fast. Let's have some ideas, right? Where we don't have to go through the whole process and search all of Uber Eats to find out that we're going to eat a peanut butter sandwich at home. So this is kind of the place where that comes in really handy, where you think ahead of time on a day when you're not feeling that way about things that you like, that are easy for you to make, that you're going to stock for on a regular basis, so that you don't go through your list and you're like, well, all these sound great, I have none of these ingredients. Because it's nice to be a little bit prepared. And so people really have benefited from that tool, because when you're in those situations, right, it can be really hard to respond to our needs, even when we do know what we want. And even when we do know what we need, it just, that little extra barrier of trying to figure it out of like, well, what do I have around? Or like, how am I going to make a dinner out of, croutons and veggie sticks and something else, right? Like, it's just, you get these random things, but if you have the ingredients that can make a meal, that makes it so much easier. And a big part of being able to nourish yourself and, take care of yourself is to have the things that you need to take care of yourself. So, like, if you had a puppy, for example, you would try to have puppy food available, right? You wouldn't just be like, oh, you need to eat again? What? That's so surprising. No, you would buy a big enough bag of puppy food to make it. And when it starts running out, you'd buy another one because the puppy needs to eat. And so we can understand it like that, external to ourselves, like, oh, this is something cute that I want to take care of. But when we think about it for ourselves, we're like, it's okay. I can skip this one.
Wow.
We can't do that forever, right?
Whoa, yeah, that landed. Landed. I think that's going to land for a lot of people, actually, because I relate very, very deeply to, like, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yep. And here we are with the bag of veggie sticks.
Jeez. And I'm starving. And Shelly, let me tell you, I was talking to Meg on the phone while I was driving home to do this, and Meg saw a side of me that I don't really care to let a lot of people see, to be honest with you. But this person was driving so unfathomably slow in front of me, like no reason whatsoever. And I was just losing my shit. I'm also starving. I'm so hungry.
So that was the fact that you brought up that specific example of like with the hunger cue. That's why Kylie and I started laughing, because we just like not even an hour ago we were having that conversation.
And that was an hour ago. I've had 13 veggie straws since then. I'm still hungry, okay?
I can also add to this from a personal level. Like, I very much feel sometimes like it's harder to prioritize caring for myself and being like, oh, sometimes I'll be like, well, I'm not really that hungry. Like, I'll just keep working or whatever, And lately I've been experimenting with changing my mindset around of being like, no, like if I am a goddess needs to be fed. No, like she cannot skip her meals. She has to be nourished at all times. You know what I mean? And
yes,
that's
she does.
Very helpful. So it really speaks to what you were saying about just really taking the time to prioritize your own needs and how easy it is, even for us as dietitians, the all knowers of food, I guess, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Not all knowers, but doctors of food. I don't know, whatever. Even us. And so I think those are really, really helpful. So thank you so much for sharing those.
Yeah. I have a new one coming out too.
Shelly.
Yeah.
No, tell me about the new tool that you have. Let's do that first. And then I have a question before we let you go that I want to ask you about.
Sure. So the new one is around stress eating, which we didn't talk a whole lot about, but I feel is also very relevant. So this one is around getting a new perspective on your stress eating. And so it has 3 parts. One is a question and answer that just my response to somebody's question about what would I do to stop their stress eating? How would I approach that when they feel like they really have a problem or struggle with eating when they're stressed or eating because they're stressed? And so that's just really practical information, including like maybe part of it is just accepting that this is a coping tool for you, right? This is a coping tool for you and giving yourself some compassion and grace in that moment. And so if you feel like you're struggling with stress eating right now and you're listening to this, that could be one step to take right now, is to just say, I really am grateful that I have food to help me cope in these stressful situations, because that can really take the stress down, because otherwise we pile stress on stress on stress, right? Stress because we're already stressed, stress because then we ate something, then we feel like we're failing, more stress on that. Just take that all down and kind of calm the system and say, okay, I'm glad I had that. I'm glad I'm coping in the way that I can right now. Another piece is to help with non-food coping strategies. So there's a worksheet that helps generate more ideas that you can try without going to food, or in addition to food, so you have some options, because it's fine to have food like for emotional reasons. We do it all the time, right? Even when you think about like birthday cake and other celebrations, or even toasting at a wedding or something like that, right? Everybody takes a sip. Why? It's not because we're thirsty. It's because it's what you do, right? So there's all kinds of reasons to eat when you're not hungry or thirsty. And so it's okay, again, taking that back to neutral. But if you want something else to help you cope with your emotions, this worksheet will help you with that. And then there's a journal about your stress eating, really raise your awareness of what is going on in your particular situation, because the situation will drive the options and the things that you might want to experiment with, right? So not everybody's stress eating is the same, and that journal will help you uncover like, what is it for you? So that is also available as a bundle.
Wow. And where can people find that?
In the website, confidentnutritionnow.com/stress eating bundle.
Awesome. And we'll have that in the show notes. Kylie, you had a question for Shelly, another one, right?
Yeah, I wanted to, and this is a great segue, Shelly. So as we're sort of coming to a close here, I wanted to ask you, because I think I know what the answer is, but I want other people to hear it. How much of the work that you do with people has very little to do with actual food, and so much more to do with their mindset and the way that they are unlearning or subconsciously learned or are afraid of or are substituting for, which is like, none of that is about food. How much of your conversations with people are centered around those sorts of things?
I would say the majority of them include those things through the lens of food. So I'm not a mental health counselor, so I wouldn't dive into like your childhood trauma and all the details of that. I might say something more like forward thinking about, okay, so those thoughts that are coming up right now, like you're hearing those voices about that person telling you certain things. So how are you going to approach this current situation? Like, do we want to practice some distancing strategies, like emotional distancing strategies, so that you can put that voice like in a corner and say thank you, or oh, you know what, I see you knocking on that door, you're not welcome here at this party, or whatever it is, right? That you can kind of separate yourself from that, and then create a new thought and introduce a new character into that mindset world, right? And say, hey, this person now is the person I'm going to listen to more, right? And this is like maybe a new me who's saying, hey, this food is acceptable, you are acceptable, what you eat doesn't change who you are, what you eat doesn't change your worth. You already have worth. You already have value. That's already predetermined. That we do include those things, but again, it's all through that mindset of, or the lens of wellness and food, not really like just diving into trauma for the sake of healing the trauma itself directly, but more about like, how's that showing up in this realm? Yeah, I refer a lot to mental health therapists and counselors and things like that if the person needs.
Sure.
And it's always a great fit, like for somebody who's already gone through counseling and kind of knows that side of themselves and can think about it in that way, brings a lot to our discussions too, because then we can kind of go back and forth, but like, okay, so remember when your counselor said this thing, how is it applicable now? Or you're having this question about this and you realize that it's something from in the past. Great. Would you like to go talk to your counselor about that now? Right. So there is like a ton of that overlap. But yeah, I think mine is definitely more, like my title, right? Nutrition mindset versus just nutrition. Yeah. It's not a, hey, tell me what to eat, give me this list of good and bad foods, right? It's much more like, tell me the how and the why, and then we'll kind of focus on the what after you get that set.
Oh my God. Ugh. I love that. This conversation's been so amazing.
I can tell just the surface has been scratched. So if you're listening and you're feeling like, wait, what do you mean it's over? Please go check out. Well, we'll have all of Shelly's information and tools available for you in the show notes, and at the very least check out her website so that you can get some more support, because I think if we've learned anything together here, this is not an overnight situation. This is not an overnight quick fix thing. This is a a practice in retraining the way that you choose to respond to external stimulants, really, honestly. And you know, you didn't get to where you are, listeners, overnight. And so the expectation that this is going to be some quick fix, which often is, you know, different types of diets claim to fame, literally. And yeah, if those have failed you, if they have failed you, then, you know, don't go searching for something that's the same but different. You know, do it really, really different. And this might be a really supportive option for a lot of you. And we're really happy to be able to offer Shelly's expertise and resources and tools. So, Shelly,
Yeah.
I could do a whole other episode with just follow-up questions, but
Yeah.
thank you for kind of sharing the tip of things here with us. And, you know, I think really inspiring and motivating, and what I think really I'm hoping has come through for people is a sense of hope. Because when you get into these positions where it feels like doomsday, you know, and that sense of feeling hopelessness, and like you were saying in the beginning, not being able to actually engage in your own existence, there's a sadness with that I'm really excited to see people kind of be able to come out of through this conversation. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much
for sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you, Kylie Meg. It's been really fun to talk with you.
Yay, awesome.